Be seated. Good morning. It's good to see you this morning. You guys look good. You look great. I see some jealous eyes looking up here at the stage. Yes, you can get one of these shirts. They're available after the service. They're $15. $15. $5 goes right back into our outreach fund to help keep that outreach going. So this is a fundraising opportunity for Love Where You Live. You'll help to fund some of those projects that Pastor Mark shared with us last week. We're still kind of putting that plan together. And we have some other exciting news for you guys for after the service, but I'm excited to share that with you during the sermon today. I want to give you an update on a few things that are going on in the church. Last week we had our picnic. Thank you so much for signing up. We had robust sign-ups after I threatened to slap some hot dogs out of people's hands. So thank you so much for responding and being there with us. We're excited to move forward with the 7 Mile Miracle. So what that means is our church voted last Sunday night to unanimously move forward with doing the due diligence it would take to acquire the property that is out there. So what that means is there are ongoing meetings and getting figures together and all that stuff just to make sure that this is where the Lord would have us go and that we would be able to do it in the way that we plan to do that. So thank you so much for being a part of that. Thank you for voting and having confidence that the Lord is leading us as we respond in faith to the opportunity that is there for us. And so this morning, if you have a copy of God's Word, we're going to be in Matthew chapter 25. So if you want to turn to there, and while you're turning with there, I want to share a story with you, just something about me. Anybody that knows me pretty well will probably agree with this, but I love being right. Does anybody identify with that? Like I kind of feed off of it. Like, I love being right. And so I love trivia games. I'd love to play trivia. Trivial Pursuit, love that. Love playing Disney. Does anybody remember DVDs? Do you remember those? Yeah? All right. So there used to be a game called Scene It. And it would be like movie scenes and things like that. We had a Disney version of it. Loved playing that. Any kind of trivia. Like, I love watching Jeopardy! Anybody like to watch Jeopardy! I don't get to watch it nearly as much as I used to, but I love watching Jeopardy! And I love answering the questions to see how many I can get right. So the other night, my family was watching Jeopardy! My kids like to watch Wheel of Fortune. They get Wheel of Fortune. They like to watch Jeopardy!, but I'm pretty confident they don't get Jeopardy! Like, first off, their answers are never in the form of a question. And then second off, like, they don't know most of the things that come up on, like, standard Jeopardy! So we're watching Jeopardy! And so with my oldest daughter, Lily, who's 11, she was like, I'm going to see how many questions I can get right. And my wife, she was like, I'm going to see how many questions I can get right. And so I said, okay, I'll see how many questions I can get right. So I took out I have this clicking app where you click it and it counts how many things are going on. And so I used my clicker app, and I had got 22 questions right during the course of Jeopardy! Including Final Jeopardy!, which is pretty important. My wife and my daughter probably got 3. So I just demolished them at Jeopardy! Right? And I just was kind of like, I don't want to gloat or anything, but I don't know the dollar figures on the amount of questions I got right. But let's just say I was doing pretty good. And I love it. I just love being right. I love playing trivia games so much that last year we did a trivia night here at the church. And if you were on my team, you were on the team that was victorious. And I just want to say thank you for being a part of my team and being there to witness just how awesome I am at trivia. Yeah, I'm not really good at a lot of things, but I'm good at useless, like, fact kind of trivia. Alexa does trivia games. Have you tried this yet? Have you asked Alexa to play a game? You should try it. And so we did this the other night, and my kids are sitting there, and I was like, let's play song trivia. And Alexa was like, okay, and you want to try this song trivia game? I was like, absolutely, I do. And she asked what decade of music we wanted to do. So I grew up listening to the oldies station with my mom. So when I was a kid, it was the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Today, it's probably like the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s is the oldies station, right? But the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So I have a pretty good understanding of that genre of music. And so it asked us, do you want to do the 60s, the 70s? I was like, 60s? And my kids are like, oh, great, we're not going to know anything. And my wife, she grew up in a very conservative Christian family. If it was Bill Gaither, like, music trivia, she's in. Outside of that, probably doesn't know much. So I just dominated. I said, how many players do you want to have? 4 players. And I just played every player. Like every question that came up, I just answered the questions. It just dominated. Artist, song choice. Here's the song, da-da-da. Oh, that's the Rolling Stones, Paint It Black. Got it. Yes. And my kids just couldn't keep up. Now, had it been about had it been like a race, like, hey, let's have a race and see who would win, I'd be like, no, I'm good. And I'm not going to win at running. I know I'm not good at that. If it's picking up heavy objects, yeah, I don't want to do that. If it's throwing a ball really far, I'm probably not going to win at that one either. And so, I know my limitations. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at. And so I don't like to do things that I know I'm going to fail. You understand that? Like, now that I'm an adult and I get to make choices for myself, I'm not going to do things that I'm bad at. I don't enjoy doing things that I'm bad at. I don't enjoy knowing that I'm going to fail. Does anybody here love that? No, thank you. So we're all on the same page. You're going to love today's message. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. And so I was reading in Matthew chapter 25, and there's this parable that Jesus tells about the kingdom of heaven. And if you've been in church for any period of time, you're probably familiar with this parable. It's called the parable of the talents in most translations. The translation I'm using this morning, it's the parable of the three servants. But it's this story where Jesus is talking about the kingdom of heaven and what kingdom of heaven is right. And as I was reading this story, I started to think, like, how would things be different if I believed in me the way that I think Jesus believes in me? Like, how would I go about my business if I believed in myself the way that I see Jesus saying he believes in us in this parable? Like, how would my life be different? How would the world be different if I approach things with the confidence that Jesus has in me, knowing that I wouldn't fail because Jesus believes in me? And so I think you have that problem too. Like, I think this is a common thing in the church, that if you follow Jesus for any period of time, whether it's 1 week, 1 day, to 10 years, 50 years, 100 years, whatever, you've struggled with confidence that God actually believes in you. And the parable of the talents is this story that I think we get misconstrued from time to time, because we hear the word talent and we think a certain thing. We think special ability. We think a thing I can do really well, this thing that I can do that's unique to me that nobody else can do. But that's not what a talent is. And so I want to walk through this parable with you as we look at what Jesus shares with us here. So Matthew chapter 25, we're going to start in verse 14. You can read along in your copy of the scriptures, or you can read along on the screens with me. But it starts out like this, verse 14. Again, the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip. And this means that Jesus is sitting down and he says, look, the kingdom of heaven is like this thing. Jesus loved to use stories, allegorical stories called parables, to help us understand heavenly things in a simple earthly way. Because his disciples wanted to know, like, Jesus, what is going on? What is going to happen? When you rule, what's that going to look like? What's heaven going to be like? Can you tell us just the things that you know? Like, imagine having the God of the universe right there in your company and being able to ask him about anything. And so Jesus knew that, like, if he could share the way that he understands things, they would never understand it. Because Jesus has this capability of understanding things on the divine level that we don't have. You and I are not divine. Jesus was. And so as Jesus is sharing this story, he says, look, the kingdom of heaven is like this. It's like a man going on a long trip. And so what he's saying is, I am the man. The kingdom of heaven is what I oversee. And here's how the kingdom of heaven is going to play out. He says he called together his servants and entrusted his money to them while he was gone. So he's going on this trip. He calls together his servants and he says, look, I'm going to have you take care of my kingdom as if I am here. You're in charge of it. You have all the authority that I have. You have all the power that I have. And I'm going to invest in you so that you will be successful and you will expand my kingdom. All that I own, all that I oversee, you're in charge of its success. And so the servants are the disciples. They're the people who follow Jesus. Jesus has gone on a long trip, all right? Jesus, after his death, burial, and resurrection, he hangs out for 40 days, and then he ascends into heaven in Acts chapter 1. Acts chapter 1 is when Jesus left the earth. He left in the clouds in such a way that they could not see him anymore. And he said, one day I'll come back just like this. So one day, as a Christian, we believe that Jesus will come back through the clouds, down from heaven, back for his people. But until that day comes, he's left his servants in charge. This is what the man does. He takes 5 bags of silver and he gives them to one. 2 bags of silver to another, and 1 bag of silver to the last. And he divides it in proportion to their abilities. The master knows his servants, right? He knows what they're capable of. He knows that one is capable of handling 5, one is capable of handling 2, and one is capable of having 1. And he believes in their success equally, that they will do with this to the best of their abilities, and it will produce fruit. He believes in them, but he gives them according to their abilities. The fact that he gives them what he gives them shows that he has faith in them. So then he leaves on his trip. So in some versions of the scriptures where it said he gave a bag of money, that's a talent. A talent was a weight of measure. It is equal to 75 pounds. And particularly, talents were used to measure silver. Most commonly, a measurement of silver. And 75 pounds of silver today is worth $14,173.50. 1 bag. 1 talent. $14,000. But that's not accurate to what we understand. So I want you to understand in ancient days what a talent was worth. So a talent was worth 6,000 days' wages. That's called a denarii. 1 denarius is 1 day's wages. So a denarius is the singular and denarii is plural. It's Latin. We're learning together. We're all on the same page. So hear me. 75 pounds of silver, 14,000. That's one talent, which is worth 6,000 denarii. And 1 denarius is 1 day's wages. So 6,000 days of work equals 1 talent. Let that sink in. All right, but I want you to understand this based on today's figures, today's numbers, because what that breaks down to is in ancient days, this would equal about $2.36 a day. So we make more money than that. Globally, the average wage earner earns 18,000, what's called 18,000 PPP dollars. This means potential purchasing power. That means no matter where they live in the globe, or no matter where they live on the earth, they can purchase about $18,000 worth of stuff. Because it's cheaper to live in some places than it is in others, right? It's more expensive to live in a place like Australia. Like you go to Australia and homes are crazy expensive. Crazy expensive. I got family down there. I know this firsthand, right? So I had a cousin of mine. He went and he worked in the mines. Like think about this. They work in mines. But he went to work in mines and he worked and he got paid a crazy salary, like a lot of money. And he did this before he got married. Worked for 6 months, made like a crazy sum of money, like $60,000 in 6 months. I was like, holy cow, that's pretty good. And then he took that money and he got married and he traveled the globe and all this stuff. And anyways. But $18,000 per potential purchasing power, that's global. That's everybody that has a job. Not the impoverished, not people who don't work, but people who earn a wage. In the U.S., this is in 2012, based on the BBC. There's an article from the BBC. I'll give you the link if you want it. 37,000 PPP dollars. Potential purchasing power. That's the average wage earner. When you take everybody who earns money and makes a wage and you average it up, that's what we get. So here in the U.S., we're more than twice what the globe averages, according to these numbers. So here's how this works out, okay? So if we boil that down to like what the annual wage is based on a day, that sort of thing, here's the math. 1 talent is 16.4 years of salary. 16.4 years of salary, 6,000 days. Take 6,000 days and it's 16.4 years. 2 talents is 32.8 years of salary. 5 talents, 82.2 years of salary. Now just imagine somebody you have somebody, your boss comes up to you and says, hey, I'm going on a trip. So I'm just going to give you an advance. I'm going to invest in you because I believe you're going to make money and you're going to do a great job in it. And I'm going to give you just 16.4 years of your salary. Just that much. What would you do? You'd lose your mind, right? Like imagine, they're like, no, I'm going to give you 32.8 years worth of salary. Like most of us are just trying to work for 40 years, right? So he's just going to give you basically all of that right there. But what if they came up to you and they gave you 82.2 years worth of salary as an investment and said, you go and you make something of this. I believe in you. You would lose your ever-loving mind if somebody believed in you like that. You'd lose it. Here's the dollar figures on this, all right? Based on that average salary, $606,800 to the first who received 1 talent. To the second servant, he received $1.2 million. And then to the third servant who received 5 talents, $3,041,000. Let me ask you this. Has anybody ever believed in you this much? Anybody? Has anybody said, I believe in you, $606,000 worth? I believe you. If I was to give you a monetary figure, I believe in you $1 million worth. I'm going to tell you this much. Your mama don't believe in you like that. She don't. Your dad don't believe in you like that. Your coach don't believe in you like that. Your kindergarten teacher didn't believe in you like that. No, not at all. Most of us have never had anybody say, I believe in you this much, a significant amount. I believe in you this much. But here's the thing. The way Jesus is telling this parable, he believes in us this much in proportion to our abilities. He's willing to put it all on the line for us. So it goes on. He continues with the parable and he says this, verse 16. The servant who received 5 bags of silver began to invest the money and he earned 5 more. He put the money to work. He went and did what the master asked him to do. The servant with the 2 bags, he also went to work and earned 2 more, did the same thing. But the servant who received the 1 bag of silver dug a hole in the ground and hid the master's money. Hey, if somebody walked up to you and they gave you $600,000, just right there, here's $600,000, do something with it, you would say, whoa, right? You definitely would pause. Like, are you sure about this? I mean, are you sure about this? Because I know me, and you're going to get back about $1,000 if you give me all this money. That's probably it. Most of us would react that way. Most of us would look at the opportunity and say, I'm not good enough. I'm not worth that much. Don't make that investment in me. Hey, why don't you just give me a little bit and maybe I'll do well with that. I want the lower risk so that there is a lower disappointment. And this servant took the money and he dug a hole in the ground and he hid it because he didn't want to lose it. And what ended up happening was this fear crept in and it took over and it prevented him from doing anything at all. So the scripture says that after a long time, the master returned from his trip and he called them together and he said, give me an account of how you have used the money. And so the servant whom he had trusted, the 5 bags of silver, came forward with 5 more. And he said, Master, you gave me 5 bags of silver to invest. And hey, here, I have earned 5 more. And the master's response is this. The master was full of praise. He's excited. He loves to see his servants succeed. He says, well done, my good and faithful servant. Have you heard that before? You been a part of church before? Well done, my good and faithful servant. When the king comes back, when the master comes back, We want to hear, well done, good and faithful servant. He says this, you've been faithful in handling this small amount, so now I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. Let's celebrate together. The master wants to see us succeed so that when he comes and we show him what we've done, he wants to celebrate. He wants to throw a party. The second servant does the same thing. He went out, he took his 2, he invested them, he brought back 2 more. The master says the same thing. Well done, my good and faithful servant. You've been faithful in these small things. I'm going to give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. But here's what happens with that third servant, the one who was given 1 talent of silver. The servant with the 1 bag came and he said, Master, I knew you were a harsh man. So he's flipping the script. I know you're a harsh man. So here's what I did. You harvest crops you didn't plant and gather crops you didn't cultivate. I was afraid I would lose your money, so I hid it in the earth. Look, here is your money back. And for most of us, we would look at that and we'd say, that's not really all that bad. Like, he didn't lose anything. He didn't do anything wrong. Like, the wrong thing would be to lose the money. But the wrong thing was not to lose the money. The wrong thing was to not see what the master had done for him and to not be obedient and to not honor the trust of the master. Most of us have done this very thing. We're afraid that God is so evil and so wicked that if we risked anything for him at all, he would be angry and he would smite us right where we stand, even though we don't know what the word smite means. Like, we really believe that. We really believe that God hates us so much that he would send his son to die for us and empower us to do things. But he asks us to do one thing. We're afraid that if we disappoint him, he's going to take it all back like a petulant child. And I want to tell you this. He is not that. He is not petulant. God is not petulant. God is not a child. He's a father who loves us and gives good gifts. And he has empowered you. And he has given you all that he has, and he has invested it in you. And we're hiding it in the ground. So the servant, he turns it and he says, look, I know you're a harsh man. And I know you take things that aren't yours. And I know you make your money off of the hard work of other people. Here's how the master responds to that. You wicked and lazy servant. If you knew I harvested crops I didn't plant and gathered crops I didn't cultivate, if you knew I was so harsh, if you knew that I would bring this, then why didn't you deposit my money in the bank? At least I could have gotten some interest on it. If you knew that I was so harsh and that if you failed, I was just going to bring it against you, if you're holding that against me, if you're so afraid, why did you do nothing at all? See, the master wasn't investing in the servant so that he would get a return. The master invested in the servant because he trusted him. Because he knew him, because he believed in his abilities. He believed he could take 1 talent of silver and turn it into 2. He believed in him, so he made the investment. And so here's what happens to this final servant. Then he ordered, take the money from the servant and give it to the one with the 10 bags of silver. To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away. And here's what happens with the servant. Now throw this useless servant out into outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Church, have you ever heard the phrase weeping and gnashing of teeth? All right, here's what I want you to understand this. Jesus uses this phrase because it's a real place that he would reference as he's teaching. He's here in Jerusalem. This is before he dies. He's giving this discourse at the Mount of Olives. And he understands that people know things about the place where they live, right? So weeping and gnashing of teeth is reminiscent of this place called Gehenna. Gehenna was basically the trash pile. It's the city dump. And what the people would do is they'd take their trash and they'd throw their trash in this place, and it would burn because they're burning the refuse off, right? Many of you have burn barrels that you burn trash in on your property. They would do the same thing. And in this place, there would be dogs, and the dogs would be fighting over the scraps. The weeping and the gnashing of teeth is the sound of the dogs fighting over the scraps. At this place where it's full of rubbish, things that are useless. In this place where there is this wailing and weeping sound of dogs fighting and the gnashing of teeth. And it's on fire. And Jesus uses this symbol, this place, to tell us about what we call hell. What we call being separated eternally from God. That in that place, it's like a burning, a desire that I want to be with God, but will never have relief in that separation. A place of knowing that you had a chance to do something, but God separates you out because you did nothing. This is not a phrase about losing your salvation. It's a phrase about whether you had salvation ever at all. Because disobedient servants are useless servants, and useless servants are no servants at all. And so here we have a master, Jesus, our master, who has invested in us. He's gone away and he's given us everything we need to be successful. He believes in you. He believes in you. $3 million, $1.2 million, $600,000 worth. He believes in you. He didn't choose like, here's $1, here's $5, here's $2. Go do something with it. Little boy, it's nice. Go buy yourself something nice. It's not like that. These are serious dollars, serious investment. The master believes. So I want to ask you this question. How would the world be different if I believed in me the way that Jesus believes in me? How would the world be different if you believed in yourself the way that Jesus believes in you? This is not self-help. This is not I want to make you feel better about yourself. You've got to understand the stakes. Jesus has given us everything because he believes in us. And the stakes are the world would be different. The world would be different. You see, we believe that the impact in our communities would be significant. That's why we've introduced this idea of love where you live. We believe that the more that each of us acts in faith, that Jesus believes in us, we will love others better. We believe that we will bring more love, more joy, more peace into the different areas of life that we're a part of. See, we believe that there will be healing where wounds exist. Like, think of all the wounded people, the emotionally drained people that are so wounded that they're draining the life out of you. Think about those people in your life. And think about all the people, all the marriages that are falling apart. Why? Because they don't have the support systems to make it. They haven't seen what love looks like, let alone have a chance to love somebody for the rest of their lives. We believe that restoration would be there over brokenness, that we'd start to see families brought back together, that we'd start to see relationships repaired, that we'd start to see bonds made where they had been broken. We believe that there would be life over death, that we're so concerned about what's happening in our world that we want to try and legislate everything, but the one thing we won't do is put ourselves on the line to love somebody and to bring life where it matters. I believe that if we believe in ourselves like Jesus believes in us, that will change. But it only happens that way. It only happens that way. We believe that hope would be there over despair. And where darkness reigns, light would come in. See, we believe that there would be freedom over oppression, that there would be equality over inequity, and that there would be truth over lies. Last week, Pastor Mark shared with us, we have to choose compassion to love where we live. But there's another choice you have to make. To love where you live, you have to choose faith over fear. You have to choose faith over fear. Because fear only leads to death. Fear only leads to uselessness. Fear only leads to no impact at all. And in order to have an impact, you've got to believe in something. And if you don't believe in yourself like Jesus believes in you, you will do nothing. But Jesus has empowered all of his servants the way that he believes in them. And he believes that they will be successful according to how he is invested into them. So the question is not, has Jesus gifted me? Has Jesus done anything for me? Does Jesus believe in me? You're asking the wrong questions. The question is, where do I need to go? It's because we believe this so much, we have something for you to do. And so today, we have these eggs for you guys. And we know that, like, I know you may come from a church where, like, Easter eggs are evil and all that stuff. You can save that for another place and another time. That's between you and the Lord. It's not between you and the staff here at the church. You don't need to send that email. I'm going to save you from the carpal tunnel syndrome that you'll develop trying to write it. Because our community, our world understands colorful eggs means Easter is here. For us, Easter is about the Lord Jesus being risen, the gospel having victory over death, and Jesus being the one that we worship and honor and praise. And we want to invite people into that. But we have to move. We have to move. And we just thought that, last year we did this Easter extravaganza, and many of you are here because we did that community event. It was awesome. Several thousand people showed up. It was great. But we just started thinking, like, what would be better? And the better thing is for you to have an impact right where you live. The better thing is for you to be obedient, to be invested in, and to move forward. So after the service, we have these eggs available. Inside, there's going to be a little card, and on the back, there's a QR code. You take your phone, just use your camera. If you have an iPhone, it does it automatically. You just turn on your camera and look at this thing. It'll take you to the link right away. On our website, we have some ideas for you to take and to love your community right where you are and love where you live. And then there's going to be this white envelope. This one's empty. The other ones are not. But inside this envelope is $50. So here's what I'm telling you. There's $50 in there. It's an investment for you to go and to love your neighbor as you love yourself. It's an investment for you to go. It's not $600,000. I ain't got that. Church ain't got that. But it's a $50 investment because most of us wouldn't take $50 of our own and use it to share the gospel. So we're taking that out of the equation. Take that $50. There's ideas on our church website, cornerstonebluffton.org/love where you live, or you scan the QR code. It'll take you right to it. And you do something. And you share the gospel. You invite them to church. And you share the love of Jesus right where you are. Because that's how much Jesus believes in you. We have 100 of these. $5,000 out into the community. Hey, if you're a family in need, if you're a family that's like, I don't even know how I'm going to pay my electric bill, $50 will go towards that, then we want you to take that money and we want you to pay your electric bill. If that's what you need. We're trusting the Lord and putting our money where our mouth is. You will have a greater impact doing this and be obedient to what God has called you to do. Go, therefore, and make disciples. That's what he said as he ascended. Go, therefore, and make disciples. But you got to have the faith to do it. And so your leadership, your pastors, your staff, your elders here, we believe in you. Not a talent, but it's $50. You could feed your neighbor dinner and talk to them about your faith. You could buy groceries for a family in need and invite them to church. You could be in the drive-through line and pay it forward. You could have an Easter egg hunt, friends and family, take that $50 to get you started. You have an Easter meal where you host it, invite families that don't have somewhere to go. Everybody's not from Bluffton, right? We're all that way. There's so many things you can do with this. It's a seed. You may need to add to it in order to do it, but that's awesome. We want you to do that. If you're in a small group, your small group can pull that money together, pull off something even bigger. right there in your community. But our hope is that you will understand Jesus believes in you. And we believe in you. And it's time for you to stop burying your head in the sand, burying what God has given you in the dirt, and waiting for Jesus to come back. That's a useless servant. And there's a place for useless servants. The stakes are high. We learned that. And caution, if you've been with us, the churches and Jesus' words to them, we want to hear, well done, good and faithful servant. Hey, he believes in you. He believes in you. Jesus believes in you. Jesus believes in you. Jesus believes in you. I need all of you to hear that. Jesus believes in you. He believes in you. He knows you can do it. He's put it all on the line for you. So after the service, there's a table outside. You can buy one of these awesome t-shirts. Your family can grab one of these eggs. And then you run with it. Take the Easter invites from the seats. Run with it. Make an impact for the kingdom because he believes in you. To love where you live, you have to choose faith over fear. You have to choose faith in it over fear. Jesse's going to lead us in a song. Our prayer team, they're going to be available on either side of the stage. If you're here and you're in need of prayer, need of someone to talk to, they would love to pray over you and with you and for you. But as we worship and as we exit today, make a move forward, choose faith over fear.